The big question is, does this escalation shut the door on diplomacy, and how are we heading towards this conflict? And is either side winning? We don't know the answers. We'll try and get those answers. Joining us on the show is Dr. Melody Sucharewicz, former advisor to Prime Minister of Israel and IDF Chief of Staff, and also advisor to IDF Chief of Staff, Benny Gantz. Thank you very much, Dr. Melody, for taking time out for joining us on the show. I want to begin by understanding, in the past 24 hours, IDF has had substantial win, ma'am, by the way of those two key figures who have been eliminated, but more on Ali Larijani for now. He appeared to be the successor in a way to Ayatollah Khamenei, if not a direct successor, but at least in the way he was running the administration. Do you see this as a strategic breakthrough, or is it a tactical win in what could be a war that would last for a couple of weeks?
I would say it is a tactical win with strategic change potential. But when you look at the accumulation of the operational successes of the past 17 days, Ali Larijani, as you said, over the past weeks, emerged into a leading figure who was really running the Iranian regime, but also before, he was one of the minds behind the massacres of tens of thousands of Iranian protesters, and for years and decades, in fact, has been notoriously representing all that makes this regime such a major threat, not just for Israel, of course, and the region, but for the entire world. So the more of the Larijanis and the Khameneis are leaving the terrain, and the more they're gone, the more potential there is for the free and courageous Iranian people to take over their own destiny and start to live in freedom again.
Dr. Sucharewicz, first Khamenei, now Larijani. What is the strategy that Israel is pursuing at this moment? Is it the decapitation of the command or collapse of regime, or is it simply trying to disrupt the command and control of Iran?
Let me zoom out for one moment to answer your question. It is absolutely happening in front of our eyes, a possible shift in the world order that sees an axis of aggression of fundamentalist regimes, among which Iran certainly is a leader, posing a threat to the world order as we've known it over the past decade, and especially to democratic societies like our own, like yours, the one in India. And that threat consists of quite a pool of elements, from the ballistic missiles, which, by the way, I'm afraid can reach India already today, some of them at least, the nuclear capabilities, but also the export of the fundamentalist ideology to the region and beyond, the terrorism organizations, the proxies that they are funding. So if you take all of that together, it wouldn't make sense to focus only on the decapitation of the regime or only on the ballistic missiles. It is really a comprehensive strategy trying to eliminate the multiplicity of threat sources that need to be eliminated if we want to see the region more stable, Israel more secure, and that global threat leave us once and for all.
The reason I ask this question is because despite all the high-profile assassinations, US intelligence suggests that Iranian military and its capacity, its capabilities to attack its regime remains intact, that they are still capable. They're even more hardline today than they were a couple of weeks ago. Did Israel and the US underestimate Iran's resilience?
I don't think so. Actually, if you even look at the quantity of missiles that are sent off by the regime, they're reduced from day to day. And by the law of physics, the arsenal that they have of ballistic missiles, but also the capacity to produce them, the entire, call it the industrial terrorist infrastructure behind that regime, is from day to day significantly weakened through the joint US and Israeli military efforts. And with that, you can also see, and that is something also that I hear from people on the ground, the context changing on the streets of Tehran. It is still too early for the people to come out again in masses, and I believe that is also something that Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, is telling telling the people to still wait while the attacks on the regime are ongoing. But the context is changing. The regime is significantly weakened, and with a fundamentalist regime that follows a messianic ideology, and until now still says, may the people of Iran burn as long as Islam prevails globally, it is no wonder that we'll keep firing as much as they can, as long as they can, even if any pragmatic regime that cares about their own civilians would have long capitulated and signed an agreement defeating that very threat from the global map.
Okay, let me take you through a possible scenario where in the near future, Iran has completely run out of its arsenal, all its short and medium range ballistic missile, in which case as well, the regime remains intact. So unless there are boot on ground, unless you have forces, IDF or US forces on ground, you're not looking at a regime change. People are not coming out in large numbers. And you pointed out that's got to do with the call that Reza Pahlavi is giving to people to stay indoors for now. But the fact of the matter is the regime change has not been affected by all the current standoff and the current build up on ground. Despite all the killings, we haven't seen a regime change yet.
But look, this regime, this terrorist regime, was built up over decades. So and with quite significant capabilities and with a lot of funding, some of which unfortunately came through failed attempts of diplomacy, like the JCPOA, which allowed the Iranian regimes to keep rearming itself and creating more and more ballistic missiles, funding the terrorist organizations, and so on. But if you put that aside for a moment, you cannot, of course, this very regime turn over within a day. So if you look at Syria, for example, that regime, the Assad regime, it took about 10 years to fall. And when it fell without grounds on the boots, at least not from external actors. And here as well, even if that may be a scenario, but if you look at this from a long-term perspective and say that those two extremely, let's say, effective forces, the US and the Israeli military, with their brilliant and strategic capabilities to weaken that regime day by day and significantly until those very harms to all of us are gone. And if we have that long-term perspective, then we should be optimistic enough to think that by the end of that phase, we will see the people of Iran coming out and fighting for their own freedom.
Is there a timeline you're giving? Since you gave an example, is there a timeline that you're giving to Iranian people to perhaps come out on streets and affect a regime change?
I would be very, very wary of doing that. But I do believe that there are people like, for example, Reza Pahlavi, who have the insights, and other skilled, let's call it, institutions who know on the ground when the time is ripe for the people to come out, meaning when the Basij, for example, and the IRGC are weakened to an extent that going out to the street is not a secure mission of suicide. And that, I think, is a major important criterion. But once that happens, I have no doubt that they will show the determination and the courage, as they have before, to take this all the way. And then it is really up to Western societies and to all democracies, also to India, to give those people all of the support that they need to bring this all the way to the end. And I think that the region and all of us free societies will immensely benefit from an Iran without a fundamentalist Shia regime.
Okay, so we don't know when that will happen, and until then we're looking at chaos, we're looking at mayhem, we're also looking at a lot of killing on ground, and until, of course, Iranian regime and the IRGC are weakened to a position where people start coming out, we don't know if peace is going to prevail anytime soon. But let me draw your attention to Strait of Hormuz, because which is where pressure is now mounting both on the US and Israel. In fact, a lot of back-channel diplomacy we're given to understand by the way of UAE, Dubai, and other countries who are affected due to the closure of Strait of Hormuz. Is there a pressure that Israeli government is feeling at this point?
It is an expected point of leverage that the Iranian regime is using to pressure the world, just like before they tried. They were hoping that through the attacks against the Emirates, for example, or other Gulf states, these states in return would pressure President Trump to stop this war, and that backfired as well. So this very point of leverage, which is certainly a major danger to the oil, potential danger to the oil trade, also for India, of course, that is largely dependent on oil imports. And that is a potential leverage. But I believe that if the right forces show the courage at this stage to join forces against this threat from the Iranian regime and to make clear that this kind of bribery, be it nuclear bribery, be it this kind of maritime trade bribery, does not work anymore and will not defeat the determination of democratic societies and of the free world, then the leverage will fade away rather quickly. And I hope that the results will not be too tangibly felt, neither in India nor in other parts of the world.